Everybody, this is Dream, and we have a 4-game slate today for NBA on DraftKings here. Before I get started in the injury report, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Also, share the video. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the slate. For the injury report today, we have the Mavs with Christian Wood out. The Wizards, Beal is out. For the 76ers, Harden is out. For the Hornets, Hayward is out. For the Heat, Hero and Martin are questionable, and Oladipo is out. For the Trailblazers, Nurkic and Grant are both questionable. And for the Pelicans, Nance is questionable. So we do have some injuries that are definitely going to make a difference in this particular slate. But not as many as we've been having, obviously. There's been a crazy amount of injuries so far this season. Let's go ahead and get into players, though. So one thing I'm going to note about this slate, I'm going to be playing this slate very light. And there's a reason for that. Everybody is overpriced. I mean, it's kind of amazing. I mean, I know a lot of these teams played yesterday, but everybody's overpriced. Like everybody went up, I don't know, $1,000 in some cases, just over the night. It's crazy to me. There's really not much actual value. So the theory here more is to just get as many points as possible for as much as limited money here, and that's gonna be somewhat difficult to do. I think today's gonna be a very low-scoring slate because a lot of these teams played yesterday, and then on top of that, their players are overpriced. Luka Doncic is $12,500. Brandon Ingram moved up, I think, $600 to $8,700. Tobias Harris has come up. Butler's up. Everybody's up. It's just wild. It's a strange kind of slate from that perspective. I mean, I expect these prices to stable out over time, but from where they've been so far this season to what this is now, is it's a stark difference. I was struggling to find anybody that even I could project to like 5x in a reasonable capacity on this one. So anyhow, just wanted to point that out. So play lightly, probably. So for guards, though, so Melton, he's a guy that's priced up. He's come up quite a bit here. You're gonna see he was 5,300 last game, 44 before that. Now I know he's starting now because Harden is out, and that's gonna make his price go up. But I mean, what about his games here really made him go up to 6,000? If he gets 20, 30 fantasy points, that's not gonna cut it today. But I still think he's got some upside. I think he could get over 30 fantasy points, and so he is definitely somebody to consider. Then we're gonna look at Dennis Smith Jr. He's actually kind of reasonably priced. He's actually come down some. He's one of the few guys who've done that. Now, obviously, he doesn't play as much with wow, my brain exploded. With his teammate Rozier back, but he's still playing 30 to 35 minutes. And if he does, assuming he does continue to play like that, he should be in line to 5x here. He's been pretty solid around 30 fantasy points, in games when he's not the starting point guard, and he's doing pretty good. So I think he's in a pretty good spot here, even though his price point has dropped a little bit. Then we're going to look at Luka. His price point is extreme, but he's been extremely good. I mean, that's Luka for you, and he's got a nice plus matchup today against the Wizards, who are terrible. And he's just been absolutely dominating everybody. Obviously, his price point makes it a lot harder to 5x here. But he has, 80-point upside, and so, he could have a monster triple-double. And he just brings in a lot of points. Spencer Dinwiddie, for one of his teammates, he's very up and down, but he has a pretty decent price point for the slate. And he's been pretty good lately, especially with Wood out. Yesterday, he had 49 fantasy points. Having Wood out, I think, gives him some extra shots, and so I look for him to be good again here and this one, especially in a weaker matchup. Then we're going to look at Will Barton. Now, he's one of the few guys I think is actually really priced pretty well. He's getting more minutes with Beal out now. He hasn't really turned that into a lot so far, but he does have some upside here. He is going to get a decent amount of shots. It's just a matter of him hitting them. He does, he's not a huge per field stat guy, but he can still get a few of those things, and typically he can get over 20 fantasy points, which is what he needs here on this particular slate. Then we're going to look at Brandon Ingram. Ingram is one of the safer plays simply because he is pretty consistent with his fantasy output. He had one game where he got hurt where that wasn't the case, but as you can see, he's in the 35 to 50 range pretty much all the time, and his price has come up though, but he is just a really consistent player, so I do like him, especially on a slate like this where it's hard to find a lot of value. Finding a guy that you can kind of write down that he's going to go out there and get you those points is a good thing to have on the slate. Then we're looking at DeAndre Hunter. He's another guy that I like that's usually pretty consistent. Now his floor is a little bit lower than I'd kind of like, but he's been pretty good this season. This is a nice little nice matchup for him without Harden in the game. Even though Philadelphia is a little bit good defensively with Embiid, he should still be able to find his way and have a pretty good game here. Oops. And then, why is that not working? Harris. Tobias Harris for Philadelphia. He's in an interesting spot. His price point's actually pretty good still, despite the fact that it's come up a lot. As you can see, it's now $7,100. It was in the 5,500 range. Obviously, his price was going to come up with Harden out, and it's still actually pretty decent. And he's one of my top plays on this particular slate because of his price point being cheaper than what his production really should be in a game like this. Then Rui Hachimura, he's a good value play today for Washington. He's been a little bit inconsistent, but he has some upside, and he's playing a little bit more minutes with Beal out, and so I expect him to have a pretty solid game. He has come off the bench though, so make sure you realize that. PJ Washington is a guy that I like today. He's been extremely inconsistent, like a lot of the Hornets, except outside of the guards. But he does have upside in this matchup, and his price point is still pretty good. And he played well yesterday despite not shooting the ball well, which that's been kind of the issue with him so far this season, is that if he doesn't shoot the ball well, he doesn't score a ton of fantasy points. But yesterday he went 3 for 12, but he actually managed to get some peripheral stats. He's a guy that kind of gets stuff in bunches, so while he's hot, then take a look at him. And then Jimmy Butler for Miami. Hero may also be out, and so if Hero is out, that will kind of boost Butler more. And his price has come up, but he's a guy that can pour in 50 fantasy points at a given notice, and this is a good matchup for him to potentially do that in. And then we're going to look at Okongwu. Sorry for Atlanta. Sorry if butchering your name. He's kind of a safe play today. He's been playing more minutes, and he's been pretty consistent. He has only had 2 games where he didn't really pay off on the slate on this season, and so I like him as a cheap option that you're going to get 15, 20 points out of, and he won't like kill your lineup, but he probably he's just a nice filler place if you need to save money someplace. Then we're going to look at Mason Plumlee. Now, he's a guy I actually really like today. His price point is still pretty good. Yeah, he's got a tough matchup against Miami, but he's been really solid so far this season, even though he's in a timeshare with Nick Richards. When he plays really well, like he did yesterday, he does get a bigger boost in minutes, and when he doesn't, he's still hitting, right around the 25 mark in those games, so I really like him here. I think he's a great play on this particular slate. Then we're going to look at Embiid. We're going to have to make sure that he's going to play a full complement of minutes because he's been hurt, and he has not played a ton the last few games, only I think once. But if he does play, he's going to be a guy that, you could, especially with Harden out, you can chalk him up to getting a ton of shots, and of course he's a rebounder, and he can hit threes and everything else, and block shots, so he's definitely a really good play if he ends up playing, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. And then Bam Adebayo for Miami. He's another guy I like here. He has been a little bit inconsistent this season with his minutes being a little bit in flux, and sometimes he just doesn't get many rebounds and stuff. But overall, he's a really good player, and when he's in a good situation, then he's somebody to take advantage of. And this is definitely a game where you can take advantage of that. So yeah, that's what I have for DraftKings. I know it's a really wonky slate. I'm playing real light today because the slate is not ideal when it comes to the pricing of players. So it's going to be hard to make a really roster that I feel super confident on scoring 300 points here on DraftKings. But it is definitely possible. It's just, it's going to be more difficult, and, obviously we're going to have to wait to see how these injuries play out to determine if anything really opens up big. I mean, there's definitely some potential for that if we look at, with the Trailblazers and the Heat both, depending on who plays and who doesn't. That's really going to make a difference on this particular slate, probably. So, thank you guys for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.